I am so excited today. I have the most amazing person on the podcast, and he is someone that I met at Podfest Multimedia Expo. We ran into each other actually when I was doing all the social media for the event, and he was sitting down in the audience, and I noticed him because he had this hot pink shirt on, and I'm like, oh my God, who is this guy? He's super cute. He's got this cool shirt. I need to go take a picture of him and talk to him and stalk him. And I did. And it turns out his name is Thadd Sims, and he is a podcast entrepreneur who teaches individuals who are lost how to find themselves through his online courses and through his podcast, which he calls Connect 007. So Connect 0007. And I will let him explain all of that to you. But thank you, Thaddeus, so much for joining me today. I was really, really happy when you said you could come on the show and specifically talk about using social media, not just for business and a podcast, but in a way to actually build meaningful relationships. Because I love that about you. It is your message, and I see you live your life in that way. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm honored. Yes. I remember when we first met, it was awesome. I was seeing you doing your thing and it was super, super cool. And I was like, I got to talk with her. I remember I talked with Chris before, and Chris was saying I'd have to talk with you at some point. I was like, okay, I got to talk with her. And then you were close. I'm like, I see her. And then it just worked out. So I love it. I love it. And it was awesome. That was an awesome conference. I cannot wait for the next one.
And that was your first time. That was your first time at Podfest, right?
Yeah, very first one. Very first one. I'm already ready for the second one. I already bought my ticket like at that conference. So
oh,
yeah.
Great. But tell me, I know you had an interesting story how you got to Podfest, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't hear about Podfest maybe about a week before it was time to attend the conference. So I think I was building my podcast and I was like, yeah, I need to connect with more. I was like, I wonder if there's like a podcast company. I would like to know more about it. And I guess my intuition was like, hey, go on Google and type in podcast conference. And I'm like, okay. So I go on it, I just type it in, and immediately I see the Podfest. I'm like, what is this? I never heard of this. Okay. And I was looking at it, and it's like, oh, it's in Orlando. Okay. Oh, it's next week. Okay. And I literally was like, asking my intuition, like, is this one? And it was like, yep. So I click on it, I bought everything, and then I planned it out. But yeah, it was just very funny because everything at that point was just so like in sync. My intuition, everything was like, yeah, do this, go here, go here. I'm like, okay. And then after that, got there, Airbnb, and they just came, and it was really, really, really good. I met amazing individuals. Like, we related so much through some like anxious, like things that happen in our lives. And it was just very, very cool. So it was fun. It was just random for me, and I enjoyed every bit of it. I loved it.
Well, you're just the living embodiment with that story of the law of attraction, because that is truly how it works, where when you just follow something that you're interested in or you're passionate about, and everything just kind of lines up, and it was just the easiest thing for you to do. And I have found that myself with things, that if it feels too hard and I'm struggling too hard to get somewhere, then maybe it's not the right fit. And I ended up at Podfest through a connection kind of like that, where somebody introduced me to this whole crowd, and I'm like, oh, well, that sounds kind of cool. Maybe I'll go do that. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that. And I am awfully happy that you showed up, because like I said, I did see you in the audience, because this is another thing we're going to talk about. You were wearing this incredible t-shirt, which also ties into your podcast.
Yes.
But
So
let's save the market. No, let's save the marketing thing for a little bit deeper in, because right now I want to talk to you about, I want you to tell our audience a little bit about what your podcast is about. Like, what is your mission with your podcast?
okay, perfect. So my podcast is all about human connection. Now, we live in a world where we have social media, but just technology in general. And because of that, sometimes some people just don't really know how to even have a conversation. They may lack communication skills or just other different things, or they're just not really taught how to connect with the person or how to actually talk with someone. So I recognize that. And I'm just one of the firm believers. Like, if I see a problem, then I guess it's for me to fix it because I'm noticing it. And my gift actually is connection. So creating the podcast was a way for me to share my gift and help other people learn how to connect with others. And in the podcast, I just go on many different topics of communication, how to communicate with someone who may have lost a loved one, how to actually connect with yourself, how to talk with different people in different areas, just learning your strengths, actually getting in alignment with the right people. So just anything related to human connection and just people, that's what I love. I love people. And it's good to actually have something that teaches people, oh, wait, I'm a people thing too. So I should probably learn how to connect with this person here or that person, let alone I should probably learn how to connect with myself. So why not create something to help people? And that's like the birth of the podcast.
That's so great too. I see so many business podcasts now and comedy podcasts, and everybody's trying to do a true crime podcast, or something about murder. I don't know why people are so obsessed with murder, but I loved that about your podcast, that it really is just like, I love listening to your podcast when I'm like doing something around my house that I'm like either like watering my plants, or I don't know, maybe I'm organized or whatever, because you have such a very melodic way of the way you speak and the way you present stuff. Like, I feel like you're talking to me directly. And you might hear that a lot from your audience, where people are like, God, I feel like you're talking to me. And I
Mm-hmm.
do believe you have a gift for that too. So I think that's important. And you're right, in the business world, I think a lot of times we struggle or we have miscommunications because we don't know how to get to that deeper level of conversation. Like, we kind of always go in with, what can you do for me? Like, it's always like that. And you really have to sit back and understand a little bit more about how that dialect goes before you get into any of, the sales part of it. So I think what you are offering now has a great value, especially in the podcasting world, because, you go to Podfest and everybody's like, how do I make money on this thing? Right.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
um, yeah. So why don't you, so for podcasting then, because you are able to, talk on so many different topics, how do you choose your topics that you're going to cover? Do you have a formula or a process, or do things just come to your mind, or is it based on what's happening in your own personal life?
No problem. I can totally answer that. It's very funny. It's a mix of two things. It could be something um that happened in my personal life that I feel, a lot of people can actually learn from this. Like, I know this happens to everybody, so they can learn from this. And then the second thing, which I would say is like the main one, is my intuition. There are sometimes I will sit down. I'm like, I have no idea what this podcast episode is going to be about. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to sit down and I'm just going to listen. And somehow, some way, my intuition, I guess, picks up on people who listen to the podcast, and it's like, hey, you're going to do you're going to do a podcast episode on this subject. And I may not understand it for no reason, but I just go with it. And I'm like, all right, let's do that. And so I'll go and it'll just come to me. I'll just write down like the notes, what I'm going to talk about to keep my mind clear. And then I just go from there. And the next thing you know, someone will message me and say, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that. Like, this is where I'm at in life, or a couple of people. I'm like, oh, so that's why my intuition said do that. Okay, I'm very happy. Like, I'm very happy. And also, too, if it's not really telling me to do something, I get this feeling where it's just like, hey, you remember that conversation that you had with this friend? Yeah, other people go through this too, but they don't really know how to move past like this boundary. Talk about that. And so that's how it'll come to me.
Mm. When you were in school, did you study psychology, or is that like, was that kind of an interest for you, some kind of communications, or where did that come from, where you realized that you really had that power to connect?
Oh, okay. So we got to go back a little bit. In school, and I'm sure if any of the listeners of my podcast listen to this, I'm sure they will. They're going to laugh at this part. But in school, I was the opposite of this. I was not the one. I was friendly. I was always friendly. Don't get me wrong. But I didn't like people. Like, I was just like, people. And if you had emotions, I couldn't be your friend. I was just like, oh, they have emotions. That's disgusting to me. No. But, and I had to care. I was not a caring person. I was like, I got to care? No. So it got to a period where I was learning about business. So this was after high school. So it was like June 3rd, 2013. I remember the date. I was learning about business, and I had met my mentor at the time and things like that. Actually, the business, it was an Amway business. So I was in Amway, and I was learning about just how to, like, how to connect with people, people skills books. I was in a position where I actually had to be like in charge of a team. So it was like, okay, you really need to get past this, oh, you don't care or whatnot, and actually learn how to connect with these people, because if you don't do that, you and them can't progress. So I had to get past that. So I would say I would literally give all of that to my mentor at the time and the business, because I was surrounded by people who were in positions like I was. Like, before, we said pre-business, you didn't know. And then once you learn how to connect with people, people skills books, how to talk with someone. And then the mentor at the time, I will never forget, he told me something, and I legit thought he was on drugs at this point. But he was saying that he wasn't, but he was saying to me, I actually just confessed. I was like, dude, I got to be honest with you. This is going to be hard, because I really, really don't care for people. I don't like people like that. Like, people, ugh. And I was just telling him all my stuff, and he just looked at me and he said, you know what? He was like, I'm super excited for you. And I'm like looking at him like, what? He was like, I'm super excited for you. He was like, because you know what? Because that is your greatest weakness is going to become your greatest strength once you learn all of the things through that. And I looked at him like, did you not just hear me say I don't like people? What do you mean it's going to be my greatest strength? I'm like, okay, you're weird. And later on, I started to see, oh, I kind of do like this connecting with people thing. Oh, wow. Okay. We actually had a deep conversation. Ah, I like this. And then it just went from there. And it just naturally came out. As far as the psychology thing, no, I would literally just give it to, since I was born, I just always had these gifts, so you can call it, or, ability, whatever you want to call it, to just really connect with people. So people would talk with me, and I would just get information about them. It just came to me. It's like I could sense how they really feel emotionally. They could say words, but I can feel through that. I would see certain things. They'll talk with me, and things about them would just pop into my head. So when we're talking, the solution, I don't know, it's weird. Like, the solution would come to me with whatever they're saying, and I'll suggest it, not really knowing what the heck I was doing. And they would look at me like, oh my gosh. So I literally would just give it to just the whole intuition and everything with that, because I always had it as a kid and I didn't understand it. So I've had people ask me, is it like, have you learned like psychology? Did you do anything with therapy? And I'm like, no, I just know how to talk with people. Things just come to me and I listen to them. But my focus with it all is to help the individual to become better. Like, if there's something that I can do, I'm a vessel for it to help them. So that's really like the heart of it all. But that was long. Hope that answered the question.
No, it was perfect, because what I'm hearing in there is that you felt like you didn't like talking to people only because you are very intuitive, and you're getting all this other information. And at that point in your life, you didn't know what to do with it. So it was probably, I'm guessing, maybe overwhelming for you. So you're like, I just don't want to have to deal with anybody, which I
Hmm.
can understand too. My issue is I'm a fixer, which I have worked on my whole life. So when somebody comes at me with a problem, or like emotional, like you said, like, I want to fix them. And
Hmm.
that's not what you need to do either. Like, you need to just listen and let them kind of hold their own space. So I think that's how it is sometimes with communication and conversations in general. Like, sometimes we feel like we know what the other person needs, and we try to do for them which they really need to do for themselves. And the beauty of what you're saying is, if you just listen to people and let them kind of get it out there, they usually are going to talk themselves into the right direction. Don't you
Yeah.
agree?
Literally, I completely agree, because I understand. When you said being a fixer, that was me. Like, people would tell me stuff, and I was like, okay, so we're gonna fix
Hmm.
this. But then that's when my intuition would say, okay, hey, like how everything you just said was like, hey, you have to understand. And it was showing me deeper things. Like, you have to understand, you're trying to fix this. This is actually something that's serving them.
Mm.
You may not see it, and they may not see it yet, but this is actually serving them. So instead of trying to fix it, you're taking the lesson away from them. So ask them questions to kind of help them figure it out themselves. So they'll say something. I'm like, well, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think this is teaching you? And then they would look, and then they would say, well, I think it's, and then something will click. They're like, what? Wow. Okay, I'm getting, and then there you go. I'm like, oh, well, there you have it. And I didn't do nothing but ask a simple question or two.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was just trying, like, working on not to fix people. Like, people are going through things for a reason to better them and their purpose and whatever they're here to do. So that definitely helped out a lot.
Yeah. And again, I think you've been so great on social media using it to promote your podcast and you know, bring awareness to it, because I find you to be very real in what you're putting out there. I know we've talked about your Instagram a bunch of times. I gave you a couple of, you know, tips on what I suggested would be great. And if you remember, I said, just keep putting your face in every single picture, because you still, and I track you, you get more likes when it's just your face. Like, people are
Yeah.
connecting with you. Like, I do believe you have that gift, whether you're speaking or you're just there and there's something about you, you got that glow, and people are like, yeah, I want to be in that world. So I think what you're doing is very necessary, and it's a beautiful thing. So with the social media sphere, then I know you're very active on Instagram. Do you find yourself, are you doing any Instagram lives now?
And things are getting up to that now. So I'm about to get into the lives. I've done it here and there, but I'm definitely going to be more active with that very, very soon, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the great tip that Adam just gave us on our last show. You know Adam from Million Pound Mission. He spoke right before me at Podfest.
Hmm.
So what he suggested, because he really has mastered Instagram for his business and his podcast. So he said, what you want to do is go on Instagram Live, do your show, and then make sure before you actually publish the show, you hit the little save to your phone button. So then you save your whole show that you just did, whatever you talked about, and then you upload that to Instagram TV. And then you can also share pieces of it on your actual feed too. So just by doing Instagram Live once, you can utilize it across all these different areas. You could upload it right to Instagram TV. You could put a slice of it on your feed if you're over on any of the other social networks. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I never thought of this. And I have used it for so many clients now. I'm using it for my own business. It's beautiful. So I'm just
Wow.
thinking, like with you, that would be something that works. And I will say also that I have seen with Instagram that the more that you're posting in the stories, that's where you're getting all of your new traffic. So I've
Mm.
actually even downgraded a little bit of the frequency of what we're doing with posting just in the regular feed area, because people are all finding us through our stories now. Have you found that? Do you find that you're getting more people just through your stories, or are you posting
Huh.
stories?
I have to get more into, like, the stories and stuff, because sometimes I just do a post and then
Mm-mm.
I hear stuff with, like, see, that's what I'm saying. I'm learning all of that. I'm definitely live, and that's all gold right there. I'm learning all of that.
Okay, well, you've
Definitely.
mastered the whole feed thing. So yeah, next is posting your story consistently. Make sure you always have something in your story that's running for 24 hours. So just whenever you put a post up on your feed, take a screenshot. I don't know, do whatever. Go just do something and put that in your story, because I'm telling you, I'm getting like all this traffic. And we talked about my new dog earlier in the show. I do have an Instagram for him, and I post all the time. I'll send you his little link. But I had to laugh because I post on stories religiously in the morning. I'll put up 3 new stories every morning. And I have to tell you, I'm a little impressed. I noticed that Miss Universe was checking out our feed yesterday. Miss
Wow.
Universe pageant. Yeah, it was Miss Universe from, where was she from? I forget the country it was. I want to say Argentina, but I don't think she was from there. I don't even know, but it was really Miss Universe. And I'm like, oh, Miss Universe is looking at my dog. So I'm just saying, you're getting all this traffic fed to you through the discovery window. And because you are so intuitive and you are attracting the right people to your tribe, I think, oh, I just got goosebumps. I think this is really going to give you a huge influx of people that need to hear your message. So promise me that you will start doing that, because I'm going to be checking your live story and be like, hey, Thaddeus, why aren't you on there? Get on there. So you don't have to
Will
do live.
do.
Just put something in the stories, and we'll see who floods into there. And then if Miss
Okay.
Universe comes through your way, we're like, oh, we are connecting here. So
Got it.
Okay,
Got it.
so then the next thing I really want to talk about that I've seen you do and I love is that you have tied merchandising into your podcast already. You didn't wait for it. You didn't wait to, I'm going to wait for me to build like a big name or to have like some kind of huge following. From the get-go, you're like, I want to put my message on something physical that people can wear in this world. And that brings me back to the hot pink shirt that I saw you wearing at Podfest that I was like, who is this guy in the shirt, just rocking it, killing it. And it was I just totally attracted my eye. And then I met you and I'm like, oh, I really wanted to meet him. So tell me about the idea for the shirts and what's happening with all of that.
Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, with the shirts, I was doing the podcast and this was in my early stages. So I was like, I would like to get more of the message out there. And it just was like, why not do t-shirts? I wear regular t-shirts all the time. And I can just put something funny on there to just really promote the podcast. So whenever I'm out and about, if there's someone who's like, if I'm always at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or some other store. So there's always going to be someone behind me waiting to check out. So I figured, why not just have a shirt, a funny shirt, and then just have the information about the podcast like in the back. Someone's going to read it when they're bored or, not on their phone. And I just was like, okay, let me make a shirt. I did that. I started off in black and white. And then I was like, okay, I know the podcast is like this type of purple fuchsia looking type of color. And it took me so long to find that color. And finally I found it. And it was like, it looks like a pink, but it looks like a purple. I'm like, whatever. It works. It's physical, whatever. It doesn't. So I would put funny things on there. So I think the first shirt that I had that you seen was like a self-love shirt. And it basically says, like something like self-love, don't mind me if I'm acting brand new. This self-love has me feeling right and different. These funny things, because I would say it. I was like, let me put this on the shirt. And just have the podcast information in the back. So I just started doing that. It was just coming to me things to write on the shirt. And I just put it out there and it has been selling. And recently I started off with 3 shirts, and then now I believe there's 8 shirts now because I added more shirts, some that was like with the elements and just all different colors. And I started to post those out. And in the beginning, I was just like, okay, I am not a fashion person. I need to find some people who are good with the fashion and maybe like a little mini photo shoot. And lo and behold, I have a little brother who's all about fashion. I have a sister who's all about photography and creativity. I was thinking, why not bring all of us together? And I got the shirts. You have the looks. You have the creative eye. Let's make something happen. And so I told them, and I bought all the shirts, and we would go to different places in, like, I think downtown West Palm that had colorful backgrounds that matched the shirt. That was all my sister. And we would go take the pictures. My brother would say, yeah, I like this shirt with these pants or this style. So I was like, yeah, you have style. So he took a picture and he would just do his poses. And I was like, okay. And my sister was like, all right, I found another spot that matches this shirt. Let's drive over here. And it just took off that way. And then people started seeing them. So I just posted them. And what I did was I just posted like one new shirt a week just to kind of like keep a consistency and not load people with things. And people bought the shirts. And now I would say recently, I got attacked by my family members when I was sitting down, and 2 of them were like, I see everybody had these shirts, but why come I don't have a shirt? And I was just like, oh, well, you didn't let me know. They was like, this is bad business. Like, I feel like I need to have a shirt and you didn't tell me about it. I was like, oh, well, you see it. And they was like, They was like, yeah, okay. Well, I need this now. How much are they? And then I was like, okay, let me just show you the shirts. And it was hilarious. And then my stepdad, he came into the picture. I didn't get one either. I feel like I need a shirt too. I was like, okay, everybody attacked me at dinner. So I got them a shirt. And then recently there was a little party at the house. And my aunts were talking about, oh, I seen Thadd's blue shirt. And it's this shirt that I created where, especially in Florida, we have this vibe sometimes where when we have our earphones in, we have our sunglasses on, that means we don't feel like being bothered. don't talk to us. The energy is low. So I created a funny shirt that had a low battery on there, and it says low battery, can't talk right now. And it's a light blue shirt, and it's just a chill shirt, and it's just funny. So it just progressed from there. And like my family's like, oh, I want to get this shirt. I want this shirt. And so, yeah, it's very funny. And people still hit me up like, hey, I got to get a shirt from you. And I'm like, okay, let me know. So yeah, that's how that started. And here, that's where it's at now.
I love that shirt you're talking about. I know that one. I was just looking at it on your Instagram, and you're wearing sunglasses in the picture, which is so great. So first of all, yes, the photography and the styling of it, I love, because I didn't know that you had help with that. I thought that was all you. I'm like, wow, this is really thoughtful the way you're doing it. This is great. I love that you're using real people. It doesn't look modelly. It's like people that are like real in the world, which is also, you know, very much about who you are and everything. And then the other thing is, like, I just loved that your sayings, what you have on the shirt, is not the generic stuff that you're seeing everywhere now, where people are like, you know, it's all, you know, that whole boss culture, like I'm the boss babe, or I'm this boss, or need coffee, and all that crap that we see everywhere. I find with your shirts, it's like you have to read it once and then read it again, be like, wait, what? Like the gaming shirt, you're like, oh, that's really cool. That's like super chill. So I can see them being super popular. So I laugh about your family. They know they have to pay for them, right? Because you're not like,
yeah. They know.
you're not like in the back printing these off. Like your model is that you're using a third-party system to fulfill t-shirt orders, right?
Yeah. It's like all the stuff in the background. Yeah. So they pay for it. Trust me, they do. They're like, how much is it? Okay. They don't even
Yeah.
ask for discounts. So yeah, they know.
Well, you know, I'm aware of those systems too. And the way that they work is that you just supply the design and you pick the t-shirt style, and then you decide on the price. But there's also a manufacturer cost that you don't have any control over. So you don't have to tell me, but whatever it is, the cost is, like, you make whatever's above that. So people need to understand, when they're utilizing products to either become part of their business or sell to promote their business, at some point there is a cost involved. So the great thing about using a third-party system like that is you don't have any outlying cost. You're just supplying a design. They have a base price, and then, you know, the fulfillment is through the house, which is great. You know, and I like that. So I think that's something, I have to tell you, I think you're one of the first podcasters I've seen do it in that way. People kind of think of it like after the thought. And, you know, if you go to podcasts, like everybody's handing out shirts and crap like that. They're
Yeah.
usually getting them printed somewhere local and showing up with like a gigantic box of stuff and just giving them away. And again, I have to say, when you give people free stuff, it loses value. Can I
Right.
please tell you how many shirts I get rid of after all these conventions, where people are like,
Yeah.
take a shirt, and I come home and literally they all go to like Goodwill, because I'm like, I don't need all these shirts. But something that I had to pay for has way more value. And I think it just ties more in line with what you're putting out there, which is like, be more thoughtful as a person and in your communications. And I love it, what you're doing. I think it's a good move for you. And also helping to build your brand, because now there's something physical in the world. Like you said, people can see it and then be like, oh, what is that about? So
Right.
kudos to you on that. And I think we're going to see a lot more people following that lead, and you can be like, hey, I started it. And also, we have to keep our eyes on like Target and Walmart, that they don't try and jack your designs, because you know
Yeah.
that's like one of their things. If I see it, I will be letting you know. I'll send
Let
my
me
lawyer your way,
know.
because that just ain't right. But
Yes.
okay, well, the final thing I want to talk about then is, I saw on your website that you were building out a whole membership side as well. So what's going on with that?
Okay, so that was something literally for different people who listen to the podcast, and the goal of the membership was to um, bring like a community together and allow the people who listen to the podcast to really have a voice on the podcast, because it's grown now to where it's international listeners. Before it was just like Florida, Cali, few states here, but now it's growing, and there's so many different people. Like it's I think it's on like every continent of the world now. Got to go back on there, and it was just like, it'd be really cool for a person who I do not know per se, but they may have some solid advice that all of us can benefit from. And instead of them just listening, it is a way for them to really just connect more and share their information And even also too, just like have a time where they can just like talk and we just go from there, maybe share the videos and things like that. So it was just like a membership that I will say I started it a little bit earlier. And so that has been something that's actually going to be, I've come to find, and this is where it gets funny. I come to find that I'll start things and they are set, but it will all come into play later on down the line. So
Hmm.
it's like I've learned, okay, hey, this was set, you put it out there. Now that you're doing this, 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 and this, you now have already created something to direct that over here. So
Mm.
that's how my intuition, I've noticed, has done things, because even now, like, that membership is set and people have asked me about it. But even now, I feel like it's not even the time for it yet. It was just a space to create
Hmm.
for something later on, which is going into something else that I'm doing, like that I'm focused on now. But that was just really that, just getting people to really just talk, connect more, even add some fun facts or some tips, and also too with the membership, for them joining, there was perks, so they'd be able to get like percentages off of the shirt, free shipping, different things like
Mm.
that.
Where you
Mhm.
what platform did you do it through? Patreon or?
No, I just used the website's features on there. So you can set what it is. You can set the membership and you can just set like codes. So like once they were to, let's just say, get on one of the memberships, they pay for it, I'd be able to email them a code, because I have the email and stuff, and say, hey, now that you're part of the membership, you have this code to have 15% off of the whole store or free shipping. So
Hmm.
I just went through there. That keep it all on. My goal was to keep it all on one instead of
Yeah.
sending them here to come back here.
But where are they interacting with each other then? Where does that happen?
So once, okay, so I have the Facebook page. They'd be able to do that on. They could be able to connect with, and then as far as, let's just say they had tips and things like that, I'd actually share that on the podcast. So
Oh, I see.
yeah, so if a new person or someone, let's just say someone was from Spain and they said, hey, I have a fun fact or something, or a piece of advice that I feel like would help. You should love your family more because you never know how long they'll be here. I'm like,
Hmm.
huh, I never really talked about that. And I'd say, hey, this piece of advice is from Joe, who is in Spain. He said so and so and so and so.
Hmm.
And it's just a way to connect. And then that's why I created a Facebook closed group for those individuals to be able to just, connect more. Like, oh, I like this piece of advice. Who is this guy? Oh, he's on the Facebook group. You can talk to him on there. So that's like what I was working towards with it.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, so essentially, like you're giving them access to, like you said, they get discount codes, they get access to the Facebook group, they become part of the show. So building the community, that's really great. That that's an interesting way to do a membership, because typically what we see is you join a membership and you kind of dump them into this portal where they can access all this other different content. But it's kind of like they're on their own as far as like what they do with it. Maybe they listen to stuff or watch stuff or fill stuff out. So I think it's interesting that you actually have them interacting now through the
Hmm.
Facebook group as part of the membership. So that's very cool too. So have you found then okay, so first of all, are you a full-time podcaster now?
Yes, I am. I am a full-time podcaster now. Yes, yes,
Because
yes,
I know
yes.
when we met, you had a 9 to 5 kind of retail job, but I think your hours were something crazy, like some other hours. They weren't 9 to 5ers, and I remember you announced one day you're like, I'm quitting the day job. So kudos to that. Because once again, we have somebody proving that they can make a living on podcasting or follow their passion and do it in a very genuine way and not have to fall into the trap of like, oh, I'll just do what other people did because that seemed successful, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So
Yeah, yeah. There's a whole story with that. I can share it, but it's up to you. Oh
yeah,
man.
well, we might say that for the next podcast because finally, I just want to ask you,
Mhm.
how many people have already asked you to be their coach?
Ah, okay, so there have been a couple of people now that have talked to me and said, "Hey, I would love to learn how to podcast." So at the moment, I would say there's about five 5 to 7 people that have been talking to me, but there's one person who she is very like adamant and serious, and I've been coaching her about podcasting. And she's actually coming to the podcast, to Podfest. So
Awesome.
yeah, I told her about it. She actually started her podcast. We actually had a very good talk. And we debate on things. And because of that debate, it led to, you need to create a podcast so people can hear these things. And when we talked, after she, I guess, thought about it, she was like, okay, hey, would you mentor me in podcasting? And I was like, okay, sure. And that is one person. There's actually 2 other people that's coming into the works now. So yeah, definitely fun. I'm excited about it because I get to give back to people. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see you being an awesome coach and people approaching you in that means. So did you originally meet that first student through your podcast? Were they a listener first? Or was it somebody
Uh,
you knew in person?
I knew them. I knew them in person, as in like we went to school together, but we never actually hung out. So we had one mutual friend. The only time I've ever seen her was at her birthday party, but I never spoke with her, and that was years ago. We added each other on Facebook because, oh, she looks familiar. Why not? And we just started. We would talk here and there, and we would comment on each other's posts. And then as I would create the podcast and put it out there, she would ask questions, and then eventually, the way her mind works, she became a guest on my podcast. And since then, we just kept talking and talking, and then it just went from there. So it's awesome.
You're like, you have too much to say. You need your own podcast now, sister.
She's so awesome. I love it. Like
Good.
she's literally, I love her mind. I love what she does. And it's just like I was telling her, you need to create a podcast because people need to hear this. These are conversations that people need to talk
Yeah.
about. Yeah. So it's awesome.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again so much for being on the show. I think I really wanted to get you on there. Like I said, I think you've done it in a really interesting way that we're not seeing other people, even within the podcasting sphere, follow. Like you started a podcast because you had something interesting to say. You saw that you could now build it into, well, let me do a little merchandising and sell some t-shirts. You started building that out. You noticed, hey, I could build a whole community. Let me do a little membership side. Now you're getting into online coaching. And that's really just because you started your podcast and you really started talking about it like on Instagram and on Facebook groups. So I think that's, again, the power of social media, just allowing that connection with people because it's a way in. Maybe somebody who would not have just found you through the podcast player, but saw you on Instagram or something. So definitely promise me again, you're going to start doing stories because it will help you.
Yes, yeah.
And I will make sure, my tongue, I will make sure in our show notes that we have all the links so everyone out there can find you. We'll link your podcast and your Instagram page so they can see what you're doing. And of course, to the awesome t-shirts, because I'm telling you, once they see the amazing sayings and quotes and motivations and designs that you've done, you're just going to be like, yeah, the t-shirt guy, because it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool what you've done. I'm super impressed by that. And I still have to buy that hot pink shirt. I have not bought it yet. And I call it hot pink, but what color did you call it?
It's some
Is
type
it
of,
purple?
it's a berry color.
It's a
But
berry.
I know, right? I'm like, I just go with it. I'm like, it's berry, but yeah, well, hot pink, whatever works, because it looks like it. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's very juicy, just like you. So thank you so much for talking to us. And I know that our listeners are going to love listening to your podcast. So thank you, Thaddeus. And we will see each other in a couple months at Podfest Multimedia Expo.
Yes, we will. I'm super excited. Super excited. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I greatly appreciate you.
Thank you.